Everyone, same rules as yesterday. Give them a hand, a little encouragement. And please take the time to figure out how you can help these companies after their pitch today. Do you want to use the podium, or are you feeling brave and coming out here to talk to everybody? Excellent. I'll try not to spill anything today.
Oh, where's the clicker? This one?
Green.
All right. Good to go. All right, so thank you so much for this opportunity to tell you about Splice and Connect. My name is Taba Sebi. I am the CEO and co-founder. So Splice and Connect's mission is to ensure that no community is left in the dark. Power outages disrupt lives. And trust me, I have 3 young kids. When there's no power, there's no Wi-Fi. And if that's not disruptive to our lives, I don't know what is. So our goal is to create a future where energy is reliable, resilient, and available. But we are currently facing an unprecedented power crisis. So we've been hearing this constantly. Grid is aging, it's too hard to modernize, there's too much instability due to power fluctuations. So looking to the future, I worry that we're going to be leaving the grid in a way worse off place than it currently is. We need significant investments, we need significant capacity. I mean, I'm not even talking about the data centers here. Like, seriously, won't someone think of the kids? So what we need is a reliable grid and affordable power, and to get serious about addressing these challenges head on. Not sure why that's happening, but so if reliable and affordable power is the goal, all those underground power cables that we put in, well, let's hope they don't fail, because currently we don't have any visibility or insights into our underground systems until a failure occurs. So over 90% of failures happen at a connection point, the splices, because of various reasons. So it could be improper installations, water ingress, different arcing events. So money that should be spent on improving the grid is instead spent on replacement. And everyone's absolute favorite surprise, unplanned repairs. Okay. So existing technologies do not solve the problem. We are essentially flying blind with our fingers crossed and just hoping nothing happens. So some technologies, they require the system to be de-energized, so they can't even happen until 3 to 5 years until you have an opportunity. Fiber sensors need to be installed along the entire length of the cable, and I mean, that's not practical or cost effective. There's some software-only solutions that rely on questionable data, if it even exists. We need line of sight with practical tools giving us real actionable data for our asset health. And that is why Splice and Connect is developing a non-invasive smart cable sensing device to provide continuous monitoring of underground power cable connections. We'll be measuring heat, partial discharge, and current, and wirelessly transmitting that information to a central user interface. So the information is transmitted to an easy-to-use data dashboard, which will provide priority sequencing, alerts, and data about individual splices. This is the exact information that allows users to make informed decisions, create proactive maintenance plans, and optimize system operations. So our product is practical, it's easy to install, it's low cost, and we're focusing directly on the weakest link. So imagine knowing when and where the next failure will occur. The business model is simple. So we're a low-cost device that goes over top of the connection points, and we collect critical information about the system. So this provides potential revenue streams from both hardware and software as service fees. And we're already in discussions with various companies for partnerships for direct-to-customer and also through distribution partners as well. So we have gotten a lot of industry validation, customer traction, And this is further demonstrated with 3 signed LOIs with major oil and gas producers and a local utility. So we're initially focusing on oil and gas and utility because we're already embedded and in discussions. But there's just so much potential, especially in the renewable space with so many underground distribution lines. So just to give you an idea of the potential, we conducted some case studies and looked at a medium-sized utility with an assumed 2.5% splice replacement rate. So that's pretty typical based on just regular maintenance and unplanned failures. So we can't have our device deployed everywhere on day one. So we were very conservative, and we further assumed that we had opportunities with only 5% of the portion that failed. And comparing the potential savings with the low initial cost, it still provided a return of investment of up to 200%. So we have practical experience in power systems and electrical reliability and key partnerships in place to get this product to market. I'm an electrical engineer. I have a lot of experience in electrical reliability and the energy industry. My co-founder, Kat, she has hands-on experience implementing critical strategies, commercial logistics, customer engagement. We're the only women-led team here and have over 30 years of combined experience with a proven track record of getting things done. Okay, so of course, we're not doing this alone, and we have a highly skilled advisory board that brings a wealth of experience with innovation. Our partner companies, including Tangent Design, they've got a lot of experience and access to complete our development and commercialization steps. So combined, we have the key expertise in technical and field implementation, business acumen, and data integration. So in terms of our technology roadmap, Splice and Connect is currently working through our proof of concept and prototyping. 2025 and 2026 will be further refining both the hardware and the software, going through the regulatory approval process and in-field demos, and that'll lead directly to our piloting plan and commercialized product. So we're always looking for synergies and opportunities to speed up our development, and just based on available funds. So speaking of funds, Splice and Connect will be launching a raise early next year for approximately $1.5 million for our seed round with the Avatar Leadership Fund confirmed as our lead investor for $250,000. So we're offering an integrated solution that has both a hardware and software to address the complex challenges that gives a clear advantage. The solution is easy to adopt for both existing and new infrastructure with direct access and keen interest from early adopters. Our ask to this room is for connections to passionate investors, potential development partners, and opportunities such as this for speaking engagements. And as my kids constantly say, please like and subscribe our LinkedIn page. So we need to ensure power reliability today for a more empowered and resilient tomorrow. Thank you.
Just, we're having some hiccups between here and the back. The 5? You don't know this, but we couldn't get the timer working, and then you had the. It was fun. It was like the first pitch, right? So
yeah,
there we go.
Something was happening with our PowerPoint a little bit as well. So
Exactly. Do you guys any questions from the? I've got a couple. Oh, you guys don't have a mic.
Thanks for that. Give us a sense of a company like NMAX. How many connection points would they have underground, roughly? Like, how big is the nature of this splicing problem, if I've said that correctly?
So talking about a typical utility, a cable reel comes in about 200 meters. So every 200 meters, they would have to put in a splice if you're talking length. But also if you're talking just adding in new connections, it's a lot easier to just put in a splice and add another connection point than it is to run an entire cable back from the source all the way over. So something like Calgary, there'd be like hundreds and thousands of splices. And this is industry agnostic is basically anybody that's doing their own distribution. They add splices quite regularly. If there's a failure, they replace a portion. If they need to make a new connection, they add a splice and just connect from there. It's pretty regular, especially because we're talking in the distribution systems, like in those voltages. Yeah.
Who are your competitors?
We are looking right at the connection point. So we haven't come across something exactly like that, but our connector, like our competition would be other monitoring type things. So there is, like say the Schneiders and the Eatons, they've got monitoring systems, but they're more on upstream at the substation or system level and looking at like the entire, there's a couple of partial discharge monitoring. Those need access to like the neutral conductor, and so they're installed like at a different location. We're a non-invasive device, and we're looking for those early indicators of failure, so heat, partial discharge, and current, at the connection, which is the point that usually fails. Yeah.
Could you just go through a little bit more detail on the unit economics of the business?
So,
For example, you said $2,500 is your selling price. What are the costs to make that? What are the installation costs?
so the 2,500 is about, I think, 20% of our, like, just the margin in there right now. We're still working through that because we're in development phase, so we're still finalizing. We will most likely have, like, say, bulk pricing, especially for somebody like a utility. If you're putting in quite a lot of these, even at 2,500, like however many splices that you're putting in. So we do have plans for looking at that. There is a 10% like software as a service fees per connection, then the hardware component, and yeah, did I?
I want to tackle that too, because it's interesting. Like, I was thinking that you're a big utility, you got millions of lines. Why would you want to spend $2,500 on a piece of hardware? And then sometimes you got to dig up lines. But I can't say that when you have 4 people that have given you an LOI. So they must see some value in that. You've already got a pricing around those LOIs? Like,
That's
you're
what we're-
charging them?
No, so that's what we're working through. That's what I meant, that we're still working through, like, as part of our development, like exactly what the cost of it would be and then what we would charge out and all of that. But 2,500 is kind of what we're estimating right now based on just the parts. And then 20% is kind of typical for the installation rates as well. But some of those, like, as we get into the piloting and as we're talking to people, we'll work through those. But yeah.
Okay.
Like, there's interest just because of the impact. Like,
One of us is going to ask, and you're getting no pushback on $2,500 from your LOI partners?
so far, no, but
Okay.
that's where the bulk pricing came in, because from a utility perspective, like, it adds up pretty quick, right, because of the number of splices. And so that's where we're like, okay, so depending on, we probably have that, okay, up to this many, it would be at this price, and then after that, like, as you put in more and more of these, so that's where that came in.
Just because I can with 40 seconds left. So, and I'll give you the last question. So you're basically saying a utility is going to pay you shit tons of money to put lots of these on all sorts of lines, and nobody's giving you any pushback. Just say yes.
Yes.
That's
I mean,
great. That's
sure.
great. That's awesome.
Sort of on the same lines, I was curious how predictive maintenance compares in results compared to physical hardware on the lines. So using software to solve the problem instead of hardware. Have
So
you looked
this-
at it's sort of on the lines of competitors, yeah.
So this is looking like, this is like both the hardware and the software, right? So right now, when you've got, like, say, like different relays and different, just from a system perspective, like, those are looking at different markers completely, and they're not really focused on the connection point, which is the point that usually fails, right? So that's where there is interest. Like, we've talked to a couple of utilities, like one of them, wind developer in Canada, US, where they're like, this is their 5th largest problem as a company. And so there's interest because of just the impact and the number of times they're replacing splices. So what that particular company has ended up doing is they're just, like, preemptively every 10 years, they're just replacing splices instead of having any kind of data to be like, does it need to be replaced 10 years? Like, should it be 8 years or should it be 20 years? Like, a cable is going to last you a long time. Cables aren't failing every day, right? But the connection point, because it's a man-made connection and there's, like, water and underground systems, there's a number of, like, reasons why that's happening. So I think I went a little bit
Oh,
off. But
and that was the perfect answer for why. That was great. And I got to cut you off.
Okay.
It was wonderful. Splice and Connect, everybody. Yay!
Thank you.
Martin's coming up next with Envolt. Martin has done time with me, so whatever if his pitch sucks, it's totally my fault. How's that? Yeah, welcome aboard, my friend. Do you want to stand in the middle, or are you using the podium?
No, I'm going to lean on the
There's a
Yeah,
crutch. Okay,
absolutely.
got it.
Yeah. So starting away, my name's Martin O'Donnell. I am profusely sweating, and I think I'm having a mild panic attack. But other than that, I am from Envolt Solutions, where we're looking to revitalize the energy storage and distribution. Perfect. So originally, working through kind of this program, the problem that I was seeing was Canada requiring 8 to 12 gigawatts of energy storage to maintain their net zero goals. It's a really nice problem to have because we have a solution to fulfill that. But what I'm actually getting through to more of a personal problem is just to try and convince and make you all believe that what we're about to kind of explain is that we're not actually full of shit. It is real. It's a tough battle for us to have. I literally just had the conversation right before coming up that it was an unbelievable idea and an unbelievable product. So hopefully I can pique your interest enough to talk with me and walk with me as we go for lunch. So what we have an electrostatic solid-state energy storage system. It's 3 times more efficient than lithium. We have an environmentally sustainable option. We are 90% biodegradable, and the remaining 10% being recyclable. And in regards to the safety, we have 0 thermal runaway, so we don't heat up, we don't catch fire, we don't explode. In regards to the market itself, we're looking around that $750 million just to kind of maintain that net zero goal here in Canada. They're estimating it to be about $10 billion industry as we get into 2030. The US is looking at about $8 billion right now, and to 10x as we get into 2030, and then the world market's around that $256 billion, looking to double as well. But we're kind of just specializing kind of in the North America and especially the Canada region. So in regards to kind of financials, this all started, so this 2024 is kind of our goal to do this type of stuff, get in front of people, have that conversation, network, meet who we need to meet. And then as we get into 2025, our goal is kind of, we'd like to get upwards of a 4 megawatt system out there. It doesn't have to be a specific 4 megawatt system. We can house that in one 40-foot shipping container. But in regards to kind of the decentralized, the microgrid sections, we're just looking for a 4 megawatt project or multiple to hit that goal. And as you can see, it'll be about a $2.5 million price tag, and we'll be walking away with about 10% gross back to us. As we get into 2026, it's the same idea. We're just slowly increasing our requirements and wanting to maybe get up to that 20 megawatts, so multiple 4 megawatts or multiple microgrid systems. And then again, we're just working on that conservative 10% back. Our competition, you've obviously all seen them, you've all heard them. The larger ones are obviously Tesla, Sungrow, Fluence. They're all doing kind of that utility grade, everything from residential up to utility grade BESS systems. The difference between them and us is that they utilize lithium ion and we utilize the electrostatic graphene battery technology. And I also have clean tech innovation, so we've had some amazing presenters in the pitch competition. We had Keith explaining the salt battery system that they're working on. So that is competition. It's clean tech, it's fun. I think that the sandbox is big enough for us all to play in, and I believe that that's going to allow us to kind of partnership, collaborate, and then in the end, possibly some acquisitions. So the founders, Andrew O'Donnell and myself, you'll notice that the last names do match. He's the dad and I'm the handsome one. So basically, my father works out in the UAE alongside the manufacturer of the capacitors and the battery systems. And then I've been able to watch this over the last several years and then understand that the requirements that Canada needs in regards to the energy storage systems. And that's that connection of Dubai to Alberta. Our advisors along the bottom row, Mr. Wasim, he's the inventor of the solid state system. We've got Mr. Bilal, he's the CMO of the holding company that deals with the manufacturing side. And then Mr. Nasir, who is of MTEL, which is more of that logistics and procurement side. So we've had discovery calls and conversations with utility companies in Calgary, and it's not uncommon to see 1, 2, or all 3 of those on the calls with us. So in regards to kind of potential avenues, I'd say 3+ years ago is kind of where it started. I was watching the technology develop, and with my innovation side, I was wondering how can I use their technology to create our own products. And that was kind of in regards to, I love the idea of the decentralized energy, getting into grid-free residential units, grid-free EV charging systems, deploying like emergency battery systems to either northern provinces or like with the Jasper incident with the fires, being able to provide that on a grid-free system. So during that process, they basically just said, well, if you're getting into it this far, why don't you just procure and distribute our manufactured products that we have right now. So they have everything from your kind of standard Marines vehicle battery to an N-Wall or a Tesla Wall competitor, all the way up to the capacitors, DC charging systems, all the way up to microgrids and Megapack systems. So it was kind of a, which avenue are we going to go down to make it work, sorry. In regards to the proprietary products, so we do have some ideas, and our idea kind of right now is to go down the pre-manufactured, utilize the funding that we get from the sales of those to help create our own IP. In regards to manufacturing, we're looking at, they're looking at bringing something to North America. As long as the market shows that there's something for them to do, they're actually looking to North America to bring in some manufacturing as well. So as you'll sit there and say, there's no way, you're full of shit, Marty, this can't be real. In the last 3 months, they've signed 34 gigawatts of energy storage. It's all in the eastern part of the world at the moment, so that includes a gigawatt partnership in Cape Town, 5 gigawatts EV charging and data center, and then agreement with the hydrogen distribution. They're increasing their manufacturing plant from 5 gigawatts to 6 gigawatts this year, as well as they just signed with Abu Dhabi a 10 gigawatt manufacturing system, so we'll have up to 16 gigawatt hours of manufacturing available. The technology itself, we're looking at, so in there it is a capacitor, please. It's short range and long range, you have to believe me on it, but they are calling it the capacitor. It's got 95% RTE, 100% depth of discharge. The capacitors themselves are 50,000 cycles, 500,000 cycles on a cell level, and we can operate between that minus 40 and plus 70 degrees without any external heating or cooling systems. Like I said before, we're over 90% biodegradable, and then the remainder is recyclable. So in regards to the next step, so we're past that proof of concept because they're signing MOUs and they're shipping them out to the eastern part of the world. So we just want to bring up a proof of product for the Western world. So our next step is to bring in a demonstration studio that allows kind of utility companies and critics to come, touch, smell, feel, and be involved in the system, as well as then start to work towards kind of implementing our own IP strategies and start to commercialize and manufacture our own products in regards to that. So the ask basically is anyone in the room that wants to be a part of this and you're willing to work for a competitive wage of $0, we're happy to build a team around it, as well as just looking for product placement and potential funding avenues.
Give me a hand. You're only sweating because it's really warm up here. It's the velour. It's like the same thing. Okay, I actually, because I saw this a couple of times, I've seen a picture, which I was surprised you didn't have in your presentation. It's almost the one you cut out, but I've actually seen your rig at a rig, right?
The rig at a rig.
So is it up and running in Abu Dhabi, or is it just on the, like, if anybody wanted the details on how it's working and kind of the results, I would assume the results are for everybody to see.
Yeah, so while I was preparing the presentation, I was kind of sitting around that 15 minutes, and then it got told it was 8 minutes, so a lot of it got cut out. So in regards to case studies, there are numerous case studies. They're in, the product itself is in NEOM. It's utilized as a EV charging center, solar-powered EV charging center in NEOM. There's research centers in Italy where it's been operating for the last 5 years without any involvement. Previous was a lead-acid battery, and the researchers had to go twice a year to replace and repair. They put the system in 2019, and they haven't had to return. It's just maintained what it's required to do. So there's lots of case studies, and if we need to talk about it, I think that would be a great walk and talk situation.
I'm curious just in terms of the ownership structure.
Yeah.
So are you guys licensing this technology from the inventor into the North American market, or do you own the IP?
Great question.
Like how's
Yeah.
it structured? That wasn't very clear
Okay.
to me.
Yeah, and that's my apology. So the IP in regards to the technology itself is with the manufacturer. So the connection where we were starting to work on utilizing their battery storage and then start to create our own IP and manufacture and produce those products here. So in regards to the pre-manufactured products, it's literally a distribution network in North America with an agreement with the company.
And you've got the exclusive distribution rights to
We're
North
working
America.
through kind of the I guess the geographical location as we start to narrow it down, but yes.
Got it. So anyone who's investing in this is going to be investing in the distribution piece for now, with the view that you'll try and build some IP around the original technology.
Yes.
Got it.
What part's your IP focused on?
Is what, sorry?
What part will your IP be focused on?
So our IP will be just basically piecing, I guess, poorly say, piecing together systems and parts, putting it together. And so we'd be utilizing the battery storage component into kind of how we can take it off grid for charging, discharging, and making it as kind of our own product. And that's kind of what we'd be working towards.
So then flipping on the other side of the equation, what's your business model? I saw a 10%. Is that a 10% gross margins on selling the assets in ownership, or is it a lease back, or?
Yeah, it's a 10% gross back on the sale of the product, of the manufactured products themselves.
Is that skinny? Can you do better?
I personally do think we could probably do better. I've always kind of, the reason I got into it is more focused for me. It's not very good at an investor pitch, but for me, it's based on I want to make the change rather than the money. But that's not really good talking to investors. They want to make the money and help with the change. So yes, it can be modified.
No, we like to do both.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, we'll split the difference.
Evan, last question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what was the selling price of the unit? And then I see a few MOUs, but what would that look like in terms of like selling within North America or the geography that you define with that contract?
Yeah, so we're rough estimate. Obviously, don't quote me on it because different projects have different requirements. But kind of around that 4 megawatt hour, 40-foot shipping container, you're looking around that $2 million. So that's what our goal is, to get that one unit in for next year, and then pulling out that 10% from that.
Can I add
That
one?
sparked another one.
One super quick thing. How does that compare to lithium ion? What's the differential in price between the two technologies?
It is more expensive, but in regards to kind of the capex and the operational costs, it's much lower because it's going to be that last battery. It's around that 25-year battery life. Warranty-wise, it's around 10 to 15 years, but depending on its use, they can extend it up to the 20 to 25 year on the warranty. So it's slightly more expensive, but you're going to save on the long run. We're not having a heat and cool the system, so all those kind of operational costs and the capex is going to be a bit lower.
Thanks a lot, Martin. Give him a hand.
Thank God. Yay!
Anyway. Okay. I am the owner of two transportation companies based in Vancouver. One is a local same-day courier, and as of 03, 04, and since then, I've figured out how to make it the greenest courier. The other one is a local same-day, not a local same-day, it's a tour bus company, and I'm still been trying to figure out how to electrify the entire fleet, but it's too expensive plus the infrastructure. So vehicle to grid, vehicle to X is the answer. And I certainly have to thank our partners, BC Hydro and CICE, for their support in getting us to this point. I put the ask at the beginning so you know what's coming. A long time ago, and Randy and I have been sharing stories, I used to help entrepreneurs raise angel money. And so I had to develop 7 steps to doing that. And the key was do each step really well, never go backwards, because it's tricky. And so I'm going to go through those. And the first step is to ask the entrepreneur, is it an idea or is it an opportunity? Is it scalable, disruptive, or are you just creating a job for yourself? That's a cartoon from the 80s, by the way. And this is definitely an opportunity. Storage and decentralized power is the future. This is from the Department of Energy last year in February, showing that there's been over $25 billion to date spent on stationary storage in the United States. However, the red lines show that there's 4 times the amount of battery energy sitting in electric vehicles and not being used for other things. So the opportunity is distributed sources of energy will be the Internet of Power. I thought I made that up, but yesterday I heard someone else saying that. So I'm in the right room. The global electric bus market is growing. The vehicle-to-grid technology market is growing significantly. We conducted the first test in Canada, and there are tests and pilots been done in North America and in Europe. So it's not that it's new, and that's what I love about it. We're a commercial enterprise. We're taking what's available, what's ready to go, what's just becoming ready. The timing is perfect. And we have been funded to do a working test, if you will, with multiple buses and trucks. And so when I said I have 2 transportation companies, I spend all my time on this now for all medium heavy duty fleets. Step 2 is people. Can't say enough about people. If you've got the right team, the right people, it flies. We have internal champions at BC Hydro. Our main one there is a fellow named Steve Kao. And we're truly partners. We're really just doing what he wants us to do, and you'll hear more about that in a minute. Christopher Ralph used to be at Lion Electric. He was the head of their vehicle-to-grid program there. He's now at Nordistello. Used to be at Ottawa Hydro. He has done 8 implementations of vehicle-to-grid, more than anyone I know. And they're partners in this. Jeff Davies has Asset Market. And they heat map all over North America where power is and where it's needed. And then you'll see why these other 2 fellows, Ron Ezekiel and Ath Karamanlis, are there. They have negotiated PPAs with BC Hydro and for Amazon and in North America, and you'll see that's a key part of what we're doing. And it's what BC Hydro is wanting us to do. When it says potential customers there, well, actually, they're customers. We have MOUs with tour companies across Canada and with other delivery companies, with school bus companies are the most obvious ones in BC and in Ontario. So the reason they're interested is they want electric vehicles, but just like us, they're too expensive, too complicated. We're going to solve that for them. We work very closely with the existing OEMs. There are a few, and they want the bidirectional V2G to be used. So we lean on them for a lot of expertise, advice, and we also work with a couple of R&D groups across Canada. You got to have a plan. So this first phase, the company formally started September this year, pretty new. And we have a plan that by the middle of next year, we will have proved it out with multiple vehicles. And then BC Hydro wants, by 2026, they want us to have, we need 50 vehicles for our tour bus business. They want to take 40 of them in the winter. When we don't use them, we park them, and they want to take them to a constrained substation and use them for 10 years. So that's their plan, and we're making it happen. And they've also challenged us to deliver at least 500 megawatts of dispatchable power, and that's 12,000 vehicles in British Columbia. So that's just the start. They're great partners. Here's the example of how it works, and this is in discussions, again, with BC Hydro. A 20-year PPA would, based on stationary storage, about 50% of what you'd pay for stationary storage would equal about $600,000 for a school bus. We can pay the school bus owner $100,000 towards the purchase of their electric school bus, which will make it a lower upfront cost than a diesel equivalent. Of course, the maintenance and fuel over time is much less. We can also afford to set up the infrastructure, and then there's a fair bit left for selling and everything else. Step 4 is source of funds. And that's why I'm glad to be here. Fit is number one. Fit is number one. It's not my first rodeo. Number 5 and 6, I'm not going to talk about. Respond to them quickly, close. And 7, it's a marriage. So what we're doing is completing our real-world tests. Already began negotiating the PPAs based on stationary storage for rolling storage. And 6-8 months from now, I'll look forward to speaking to people about equity investment as we start to roll out the next phase. Take a look, take a picture of that QR code. That'll take you to our website, and it'll ask you to sign up and we will send you quarterly updates and information, and know that you're interested, and look forward to connecting with you as things go forward. Thank you.
It was brilliant. Well done. Not your first rodeo. Yeah. Okay, I want to ask, though, if you don't have to go back to it, but on your slide, you have the plan, and you've got a 2025 rollout and a 2026 rollout with your partners, and they sound like they're customers. So how much revenue does that generate, just what you've got already listed? Not like you've got the roadmap that gets to like millions of dollars, but in the short term, it sounds like you've already got some revenue already laid out in the next 24 months.
Yes, we do, but I do have to say that in the next 6 months, this PPA, without that, go home. It'll wait 10 years. Without that, nothing's going to happen. And so that's why we have top people helping us negotiate it. That's why we're doing what BC Hydro wants us to do. They've said a couple things. They said this: Rob, we need you as much as you need us. And they're essentially telling us what they need. And we're their skunk works. We are truly their skunk works. We can make things happen more quickly without all the studies and everything else.
And IP, like how much of this you own, or are you just like kind of an integrator, you're bringing everything together?
Thank you for that question, actually. So when we did the test at PowerTech, it took 3 times longer than everyone thought. BC Hydro paid for it, a lot of money. And again, what we're doing is what the report said they needed, and what they need is a controller. So you've got all the OEMs, different buses and trucks. They're all different batteries, et cetera, rates, warranties. You have the hardware, the BorgWarners of the world with the bidirectional chargers. They're the only one in North America right now. You'll have software providers. You have to have a controller in between it all to make it work. That controller is like that little sound when you send the fax. That's the little gem that's needed, and that's the IP that pre-tests everything and makes sure that the power going back into the grid is exactly how they want it.
Brilliant. Okay.
And you guys own the IP around this controller. What was the genesis of how that controller was developed? And
Well,
where
it's
is
being developed.
It's being developed at the
It's
moment.
being developed as we do this. I'm a learn while doing kind of guy.
Yep.
You can figure that out. And so it's being developed. The genesis is really from the test that we did last year, and they said it has to have a controller. So it's, yeah.
So what are some examples of fitting the bus schedules with the need of demand?
So we'll start with the low-hanging fruit. And so school buses are easy. That 40%, I've met with many of them, and they tell me, okay, 40% of my buses are back at base, 5 o'clock every day, like clockwork, and they've only gone 40 kilometers. So they've got lots of battery life left to give from 5 till 10 at night, and then trickle the charge in until 6 or 7 in the morning. Our first case with tour buses is we don't use them in the winter. So they, just for that 6 months, they'll pay us a lot of money to peak shave, and because BC and Nova Scotia are winter peaking. My courier business, again, some of the buses come back to base. Geotab says that most electric fleet vehicles come back to base, and they've only used 30% of the battery.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What's the competitive landscape look like, and what makes you different from them?
Yeah, I took that slide out. There's 2, and in this case, I would say they're great examples. One is Highland. It's a private company based in the States. They've raised $275 million. And the other one is Nuvve, N-U-V-V-E. They're very good. They started quite early. They're a public company, and I think they maybe started a little too early because they're running out of money, but They're in the States, so we're really owning the Canadian marketplace, and this market is going to be so big that, you know, we're already talking and being contacted by Pacific Northwest United States.
Great. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Graham.
So let's say I own a bunch of school buses. They go back to the depot at 4 o'clock, and they're going to be used for peak shaving. Are you guys providing the whole turnkey solution where you go, right, we're going to help you with the charging infrastructure you need, the scheduling, as well as the controller? Or are you going, we're going to go and find the partners that are already really good at these other things?
So that's where groups like Nordestello come in. That's what they do. They do large projects. We'll have other partners to do smaller ones. Yeah.
Great.
But you need them in the sense of every project needs the consulting boutique application to deliver it?
You know, our real world test right now is with Lion buses and Synop software and Borg Warner hardware. They've implemented this in a few other locations. So it comes as a strong kit, if you will. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And again, the controller is what gives BC Hydro, in this case, the certainty that they get what they want when they need it.
Great. I got to cut it off there. Thank you so much, Rob. Well done. Well done.
So I'm going to pick the most boring area to be in. Asset management, right? We're in the distributed energy business. We put in a lot of equipment, a lot of asset to manage energy. And we look to have, multi-decade investment to yield the results of that. So there's nothing new, there's nothing exciting about this business, which is saying, once you put in the asset in the ground, how do you make sure it has the highest availability, upkeep, and capacity of the equipment? So that's what we do. We've been running a proof of concept for this for about the last 7 years. The name of the company is Quadricle. We went out and we said, look, all of these assets needs to be maintained and operated. And over the course of that year, through a lot of learning, we've built a lot of technology. We've reached about a $2 million in ARR for business. Throughout all of this, we made sure we never raised any money. We made sure we built the product for the right future. And now we're kind of looking at it saying, this is a reasonably good business. We've figured out the industry. Where do we want to take it next? So that's what this talk is all about. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in terms of giving you the market and a landscape and ARRs and stuff. I think from an investing standpoint, if you're interested, we'll get into that. But let's look at the fundamentals of the challenge, right? The fundamentals of the challenge is, we've heard a lot of pitches here also, where new technology comes about, it disrupts things. And then somebody needs to manage it. This new technology would have expertise that would be required from a domain perspective. We've heard from people, right, how difficult it is to find the right resources to run our industry moving forward. So domain challenges are one. Of course, you need to have the instrumentation, all of the plumbings of the data and stuff needs to be coming in. Lots of companies do that. All through of this, there's something unique about our industry, which is saying all of this equipment is, because of the distributed nature, because of the field nature, it's spread all over the place. It degrades differently over time. There are no simple playbooks to manage this equipment. And finally, as it degrades, we need to bring in people. We need to make sure there's there's the aspect of reliability, the aspect of confidence that the grid is going to get the energy that we promised it is super important. So we end up creating playbooks and workflows to make sure, how do we make sure all of this equipment is kept up to date at all time. And then you can do it for 1 plant, 2 plants, 3 plants. All of our customers are looking to go 10 gigawatts, 100 gigawatts, and bigger and bigger. The needs ever evolving within the industry. The only thing constant is the needs of our global economy from an energy standpoint continue to grow. So the idea or the thought is, and then again, as I said, we've been building and running this POC for the last 7 years. Part of the POC is saying, yeah, we understand the space. We'll do everything linearly. In the middle, you have all of these things where, As a software provider, we built software, we built experiences, we embed AI. All of these tools need to be consumed by a performance engineer. Somebody has to hire that performance engineer. Somebody has to train that performance engineer into the specifics of the site and the installation they need to manage. Our system has to communicate to that performance engineer all the intelligence that we have gathered in terms of what needs to be acted, what's broken, how it is going to be fixed, what is the proof that it is broken, and what are the approaches to fix it. That performance manager is most likely not, performance engineer, is most likely not the person who's going to be in the field in a distributed environment making the fixes. So they'll have to communicate with that field engineer as to what needs to be done. And then industry is changing. Every one of our customers ends up identifying and figuring out things that are not part of the system. So that feedback loop goes back to a developer or software person, which goes about enhancing these tools, et cetera, et cetera. As I said, our POC is reasonably successful. We are doing extremely well with our growth and projection. This talk is not about what Quadrical has done in the past. This talk is about how do I disrupt Quadrical? How do I put Quadrical out of business? How do I put other stakeholders which are blocking our success as an industry to go 100x, 1000x at scale in the future? We've heard a lot of hype about Gen AI, ChatGPT. We all have used it personally. And then there's also reasonable skepticism in terms of as to whether there is hallucination, is this just probabilistic stringing of words together to make sense, or does it really have value? We have looked at the technology for the last 6 months, and we believe in 2 fundamental shifts that we're going to be able to leverage. The first shift, how do I disintermediate all of these tool providers? The problem with technology and the problem with scale is all of us are working in an industry to try and produce value, and all of us believe that if I can scale my business, somehow it is going to be better for the industry. What ends up happening is we end up competing against each other, we create silos, and that we prevent the industry from moving forward. When we look at the ChatGPT and some of the generative AI, the core technology, we have figured out how the agent technology can be used to disintermediate Quadrical, to disintermediate all of our competitors, where we should simply be an API or a curated data provider into a tool which is far more intelligent than what linear programming techniques can provide. So we believe the 3 things around LLMs can do better logic, better summarization, and they're actually going to be superior to experts. Again, the technology exists, whether it is Quadrical's API or one of our competitors' API, the agent technology should be able to integrate that reasonably well and work forward. And then finally, the interactive chat as an interface is going to be far more superior than the one-directional push of the tools and the interfaces that we put out to our customers. And then finally, look, our challenge is always going to be how do we scale the experts and the assistants. So, and on the right-hand side, I gave you an example of how that might look like. As I said, the need for hiring performance engineer and scaling that goes away. A lot of communication goes away. The field staff chats directly with the agent, and we get an overall improvement of quality and scale. There are not 15 different moving parts, and the system scales much, much better. As I said, we've done this before. We have the team, we have the expertise, we have deep customer relationships. As we built out the technology as a GTM partner, Quadrical and its customer base is a ready uplift for us. And then in an evolving technology, the moats are going to be, we're going to be learning better, faster, and we have access to the right scenarios and customers.
Watch this. My first question will be, what's your ask today?
$2 million. We're going to spin off this as a standalone entity, and we're going to leverage all the benefits of Quadrical, but in a new instrument.
just slide up for them to look at while we do Q&A, or do you have another one that you want?
This is the last slide.
Perfect. Good man.
Thank you very much.
Don't go far, sir. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
So what's the current state of this LLM software agent that you're creating?
So we've done some preliminary POCs, and some of those, the previous slide that I showed, how do you go back? Some of these interfaces are fairly easy to build on top of our existing technologies. So what ends up happening, again, I'm assuming there are lots of software providers in the room, we end up building a lot of the business and domain knowledge very intimately within our tools. We make assumptions. We try to figure out, okay, let's take a case, right? I mean, some of the partners are saying, hey, we're going to build a brand new storage technology. And when that storage technology comes out, they're going to push out equipments which have all sorts of equipment error codes and warning conditions and operating conditions. And then the tools providers start looking at all of that and saying, I need to build tools so that this can be managed in a healthy manner in the field.
So the way you're talking, it sounds like you have customers that are utilizing the older system, and you're going to a new like basically new product. So how many older customers and how much revenue did you do last year?
So not last year. We've already booked for about 1 million ARR for the coming year.
And do you mind, are you allowed to talk about what kind of companies would be those people?
Typically, all of our customers are owners and operators. We've done a lot of work with the operators, but our volume of business with the owners is increasing. So when you look at any of the asset owners today, right, everybody is saying, hey, I'm going to do 10 gigawatt next year or 20 gigawatt year after, and so on and so forth. The businesses are scaling, and their needs for partners is also elevating. They're no longer interested in working with SaaS providers. Some of our competitors are companies like PowerFactors, Fluence, anybody who is integrating assets across multiple classes. We are actually going head to head with them and taking some of their customers, especially on the larger assets.
Just briefly, so I'm dumb, right? I'm not a technical person by background, so I'm going to try and simplify this. So effectively, this is almost like a chat GPT of asset management. Is that the way to kind of think about this?
Yes.
And how are you training the model? Like, is this your own proprietary asset management data that you're pulling off a database? What's to stop someone else creating the same tool? I'm assuming you've got proprietary data that you're training this on.
Right. So multiple things. Just to kind of, there is a conventional wisdom, and it's fairly well grounded, where ChatGPT and all of these technologies have foundational English language expertise. There's already investments being made by the Microsoft and the Amazons of the world, which is say, I'm going to introduce logic and understanding. So as long as you can pose your business problem as an English language, probabilistically the logic it would follow would end up solving your things. So that's the foundational technology. We don't think of it as any different from Python or any other language. So the foundational capability exists. Now, how do I reframe my problem? Not from an English language, but real streaming information coming from my tabular systems, my instruments from all different devices. How do I marry it with the equipment codes that I know about my equipment? How do I marry additional things? So we're not doing any foundational research. We're building a little bit of the glue technology. The challenge and the opportunity is not just as much of training against all the historical data I have from the last 7 years, but also making sure that I have a framework in place so that the future learning is going to be easy. So some of the examples that we talked about, how is the system going to learn? I don't want a programmer going back to the old ages and somebody training the system again. That training should be done by the product and the tool directly in an English language. So if the system is incorrectly telling me, saying, hey, look, there's an installation fault, and the field engineer has said, no, there's no installation fault, there's a tracker issue, they should be able to put that in the English instruction saying, after you've done the check to see if the tracker is delayed or not. If it is, then the answer is X versus the answer is Y. So those are the things that we found to be really, really transformational, that we don't think our software engineers are going to be able to support and build, versus if I create the right framework with ChatGPT and those technologies, this would be 100x of what our current business is.
And you have the revenue to prove that's right. So we got to cut it off there. Thanks again. That was great. All four companies looking for some love today.